Welcome to England in the grip of a cold snap. It's mid-December and the temperatures outside are about 5 below. If you're following this channel, you'll have observed some changes recently, not least of all to the name. Previously I've made videos mostly about shooting and the process of making ammunition, but during the pandemic I underwent some personal and professional changes and I want those to be reflected in this channel. Let me start by telling you a bit about myself. As a day job, I'm a translator and editor working from Swedish and sometimes Norwegian and Danish into English. I did my BA in Scandinavian languages at the University of East Anglia in Norwich, and I've freelanced ever since, so that's about 30 years. For about 7 years until August this year, I was also a sporting firearms dealer. I've had quite a keen interest over the years in target shooting and how firearms work, and so that's been a major influence on what I've done. Taking a cherished hobby and turning it into a job is often touted as the path to true happiness. If you can make money doing something you love, then have at it, do what you enjoy, be your own boss and be free. Trouble is, it doesn't always play out quite like that. Having a hobby become a job often just tarnishes a perfectly good hobby, especially if it does so just as the trajectory of the entire world is skewed by a plague followed by a war. Who'd have thought when we were all singing Auld Lang Syne on 1st of January 2020 that by March we'd be ordered to stay off the streets until further notice, and we'd be in the grip of something unseen since 1918. By sheer bad luck, I happened to open a full-blown sporting firearms dealership just as the British government announced its second lockdown. Even at the best of times, the gun trade in this country is notoriously fickle, but this just flipped the needle right off its track. To cut a long story short, the upshot of all this was that my interest in shooting waned somewhat, so I decided to take a break. There were other factors, of course, but for me it was just the case that change was in the air and I was ready to move along. Whilst all this was percolating, I was nearing the end of my 4-part series on small arms propellants, and it was whilst doing those that I discovered an outlet for 2 other lifelong interests: music and filmmaking. I've played various instruments over the years: trumpet, drum kit and classical guitar, with varying degrees of success. In 2021, friends had bought me a little keyboard for my birthday, and I started working up a series of related pieces for parts 2, 3 and 4 of the series on powders. As the gun dealership came to an end, I found myself more and more engrossed in the purely creative side of what I was doing. I put up some of the soundtrack cues from the powder series and then began writing and posting other pieces. It quickly became obvious that the direction of this channel was going to shift, hence I've begun a complete makeover of it. About the name Wrangler, my liking for small furries is well known to my Facebook followers, but perhaps less so on here.
Checking with your little feet. Come on.
I'd kept mice as a kid, save for a brief defection to gerbils because they live longer. And then in 2004, one of my sons bought me a couple of mice as a present, and there I was, 11 years old all over again. I'll say more about mice another time. They're fascinating little creatures, and there's more to them than perhaps meets the eye. I'm due a fresh influx in the new year, so perhaps I'll cover that when it happens. Otherwise, I want to take this channel onwards and do a whole range of different subjects. I've got some ideas already, just things that have piqued my interest over the years. At some point I'm also aiming to move to a different part of England. If and when that comes off, I'll say more about it then. I'd also like to do occasional diary entries such as this one, as I'm sure there'll be some things of interest to discuss. You're welcome to put suggestions in the comments below if you'd like to. If you've been following me solely for firearms and hand-loading videos, then let me say I completely understand if my future plans aren't your cup of tea, but by the same token I would be delighted if you chose to stay. Obviously I hope people want to see what I have to say, but more than anything I want it to be interesting and informative. So I look forward to having you along for the ride. Thanks for watching.